What up, though? The people who are termed Black Americans, African Americans, colored, mulatto, Negro, Negra, Negroid, Negress are the true and only indigenous American Indian giants. The distinction is always made between Native Americans and American Indians. Native Americans find it offensive to be called American Indians because they are not American Indians. They Native Americans, meaning they was born here and ain't the people who belong and are connected to this American soil like you is. This ain't about the Native Americans, although they part of the theft of our identities, along with every foreigner and or immigrant that lands on our soil and adds American to their nationality. Notes from the Frontier, 2020. Standing tall. 1800s Native Americans were tallest in the world. These are some of the Native Americans. It's a photo shoot. Recently discovered data has revealed a surprising fact. Native Americans, especially equestrian plains tribes, were the tallest people in the world. How do we know this? Modern day anthropologist Richard Steckel of Ohio State and Joseph Prince of the University of Tennessee discovered some data collected in the late 1800s by the father of anthropology, Franz Boas. Boas had studied native lifestyles and recorded measurements of 1,123 native men in 8 equestrian plains tribes. Now we're speaking of Franz Boas, the father of anthropology. Someone Zora Neale Hurston held in, I guess, a sort of high regard. Franz Boas, the father of anthropology. They recorded measurements of 1,123 native men in 8 equestrian plains tribes. In the Oklahoma area, Arizona, all that area west of the Mississippi. This has nothing to do with the people who were south of the Mississippi. His findings: all the tribes were taller than white men, and some were substantially taller. His findings: all the tribes were taller than white men, and some were substantially taller. Now, what white men he's referring to, I don't know. I guess he should have been more specific. Boas studied 8 equestrian tribes of the Western Plains: the Assiniboine, Blackfeet, Crow, Sioux, Arapaho, Cheyenne, Kiowa, and Comanche. Here we go. These were the tallest men in the world, he says. Remember, let's go back up. We don't want to forget the entire point of this article. 1800s, Native Americans were tallest in the world. Okay? Tallest in the world. He studied these different Plains tribes. The average height of white men in the U.S. in the 1800s was about 5'6" in the mid 1800s, and European men were slightly shorter. So he says, the person who wrote this article says the average height of white men in the U.S. was about 5'6" in the mid 1800s, and European men were slightly shorter. They make a distinction between white men and European men for some reason. I'll let you figure that out. We'll talk about that at a sometime in the future. However, Boaz found that the height of the average Cheyenne was a whopping 5'10". The Arapaho 5'9", the Crow 5'8.5", Sioux 5'8", and the Blackfeet a fraction under the Sioux. The Kiowa were 5'7". These were the tallest men in the world. This is the father of anthropology, Franz Boas. These were his findings. And the Assiniboine, a fraction under the Kiowa. The Comanche were the shortest. They had the same average height as white men, 5'6". Now, mind you, this is the 1800s, the mid 1800s. Your family was here. My family was here. I know where my family was. You know where your family was at during this time? And I guarantee you some was taller than 5'9" or 5'10", a whopping 5'10", right? Let's shake it. This is from Medium. This is from Medium. Belinda Malasasimi, the world's tallest black woman in the 1800s. Remember, we just went over the Plains tribes, the tallest Native Americans, the tallest people in the world, right? In the mid 1800s, the world's tallest black woman. Now, if we're talking about the 1800s, I doubt if any of your family were calling themselves black. I mean, I could see it more when in the 1960s, when the propaganda made sense of why someone would be calling themselves black. Although it doesn't make sense. There is no black humans. A Black Panther isn't even black. The world's tallest black woman. Now, when they say black, what is this woman? First, we know it's a woman. And they say it's a black woman, which means she's a shade of brown. And if she's a shade of brown, what is she? She was a woman whose family was from this soil. So I guess we could properly say, at the very least, she's American. And like you and me, the only Americans. The world's tallest black woman in the 1800s mysteriously vanished. The 8 foot tall, now dig this, the 8 feet tall African giantess who worked as a side attraction in the late 1800s, the 8 feet tall. Now, remember, we spoke about the Plains tribes, with the tallest being a whopping 5'10", and they're said to be the tallest people in the world, right? Right? The 8 feet tall. Remember, 5'10". That not that 5'10" is short, but right here we're speaking of the tallest black woman, or properly American woman. And if you just want to get just straight up, just out your body, American Indian woman mysteriously vanished. The 8 feet tall African giantess who worked as a side attraction in the late 1800s. Now, if you read articles and you read historical documents, you will see a common thread that all our people are always given the label of a slave. They was born to a slave. It's always a slave. And they're always trying to connect it to Africa. And this article is 2022. So I get it. The brainwashing, or I should say, the indoctrination it was strong in 2022. So let's put this into proper perspective, because this woman wasn't an African. I don't have anything against Africans. It's just that we want the truth here. 8 feet tall. Sister right there. American sister. Born Ella Grigsby in South Carolina in 1865. In South Carolina, she's a South Carolina Indian. But in 2022, she's an African giantess. Ella Williams became a notable figure because of her unusual height of 8 feet. I wouldn't say unusual. They didn't tell us about her family members. Who knows? Maybe her uncle was also super tall. Let's shake it. So this is from a newspaper clipping. The Quad City Times, Davenport, Iowa, Friday, March 10th, 1961. March 10th, 1961. At 14, she's 8'2" and still growing. New Orleans, an 8'2" teenager, possibly the world's tallest female, was treated in a New Orleans hospital Thursday for a knee injury received playing basketball. Doctors say Dolores Pullard, 14 years old, Negro, we know what that means, of DeQuincy, Louisiana, may still be growing. This is another American woman. Just like you and me, the only Americans. This is a newspaper clipping. New Pittsburgh Courier, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Saturday, March 18th, 1961. 8'2". Louisiana girl may be world's tallest. Wait a minute. I thought they said the Plains Native Americans, the equestrian Plains Native Americans, were the tallest in the world. Or did they mean the tallest Native Americans in the world? Or the tallest Chino-Siberian Spaniards in the world? 8'2". Louisiana girl. Louisiana American girl may be world's tallest. New Orleans Dolores Pullard a 14-year-old high school student of DeQuincy, Louisiana, is possibly the tallest female in the world. She was measured at 8 feet 2 inches tall at Charity Hospital here last week, and doctors say she may still be growing. The girl entered the hospital last week for treatment of a knee injury, received playing basketball. Doctors said they hope to keep her in the hospital longer than necessary for treatment of the knee injury so they can study her case. Study, okay? These people they always studying us. They always want to study the nigga. You understand? They always want to study the nigga cranium and nose and lips. What make them the way they is? Dolores is the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Clarence Pullard, both of normal height. Her father, an unemployed laborer, is 5 foot 9 inches tall. Her mother is 5 foot 11. Wow, both of them. Whoa, the mother is taller than the tallest Plains Indians, the tallest people in the world. The mother is taller than the tallest people in the world. So the daughter is basically a god. 5 foot 11 inches tall, and her 12-year-old brother is of normal height. There is no record of unusually large persons in the family. The girl, who is well proportioned despite her abnormal height, weighs 278 pounds, 8 foot 2, 14 years old. Louisiana, American Indian. Doctors say she has a normal 14-year-old personality, does not appear particularly conscious about her size, and is quiet and soft-spoken. She doesn't appear particularly conscious about her size. When she walked down the street, everybody come to her waist, but she not conscious of her size, right? Come on, man. New Pittsburgh Courier, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Saturday, March 18th, 1961. Let's move on. The first record of Dolores' case came from a DeQuincy physician who said he first saw her when she was 4 years old. So what? They've been studying her since she was 4. At that time, he said she was as tall as a 10-year-old child. He saw her again 3 years ago, and she had grown to 7 feet. 7 feet. The physician said she might be suffering from a growth or tumor of the pituitary gland at the base of the brain, and that this would cause her growth. Or the physician is going to do the growth or tumor of her pituitary gland to her, to the base of her brain. They're going to do it to her. Why? Because it's miserable people here. There are miserable people on this planet, and they want everybody to be miserable. The girl is 8 foot 2, playing basketball. And they say that this is a condition, that she's as tall as she is because of some sort of dis-ease, some sort of ailment. This isn't an attribute to them. Just as you aren't an attribute to this American soil, to these miserable people. And you know who I'm talking about. The girl's mother said Dolores has a pleasant disposition and likes to sew, cook, clean house, and play basketball. She is a good student in school, her mother said, and earns B's and C's in all classes. This is 1961. This is during your whole civil rights movement. This is when we supposed to have been so downtrodden, right? Dolores said basketball is her favorite sport. She has scored as high as 50 points per game, she said, simply by standing near the basket. She says she would like to go to Grambling College when she leaves high school. None of this should be news to y'all, right? What other giants you seen in America? What other giants you seen in America? Do some homework. Find out where and why the Smithsonian has the remains and other physical attributes of your ancestors. You know, the other giants. Why do they have that information? Because you need to know about these American Indian giants. You know, like our girl who mother was taller than the tallest Plains Indian who's supposed to be the tallest people in the world, right? Why would they say that? Why would the person who wrote that article say that? I told you it's miserable people in this world. Don't be one of them. And do some homework because it's a organization, Smithsonian Institute. I'm sure they have all the answers about the giants. Because just like the Egyptologists, they are also tomb raiders. Do the right thing.